Going live. Oh my goodness gracious, we're back and we have me and Karen both here already. Lisa's the one who's not here yet. What is this world coming to?
I don't know. This is a weird world where Karen is on time. Just turning
Now,
my phone to do not disturb here.
I am going to, since I didn't let people know about this ahead of time, Woodcraft is live now. Really nice.
Yep.
Actually,
Right.
editing. Woodcraft live now with the beginning of Book Little Men. Haha. Anybody who was watching now got to see me live post that Facebook post. Living
Yeah.
in large.
Uh, when you forget to post that you're going live before you go live.
Well, I wanted to share the link with it. Also, I finished getting my computer on and here, like, not very much before I actually started the Zoom call. That's not what I wanted
I'm
to
going
do.
to check in with Lisa if she doesn't get on here in a minute.
Yeah, I was actually just thinking that same thing.
So
Sure. All right. Well, in the meantime, my nose itches. That wasn't
there's
really what I was going to say in the meantime, but ugh. In the meantime,
yes. In the
where are my
meantime.
boots? Oh no, I lifted my boots and set them further back so they're not within reach.
Um,
Now, any Trekkies watching can see me wearing my There Are Four Lights shirt.
I know that she's been tired lately, so she might have been taking a nap and not
I
woken
don't
up.
blame her. The trouble with doing things that come in pairs is that by the time I get to the second one, I always want to like move on to the next stage already.
Yep.
So I'm like, do I really want to do base layers in this? I could be putting new layers in this one. Hey, we have Elisa.
Yay.
Hello.
Hello.
Sorry I'm late.
You know what's way more shocking?
What?
Karen was early.
Karen was early.
Uh, um, yeah. As you can tell, I don't have much of a voice
I was
today.
about to say you sound like you're not feeling great. Um, if you need to
It's all
like
my voice. It's nothing else.
if you need to sign anything at me for me to say out loud, feel free.
Will do.
Um, so before I start working on painting my boots,
Oh,
I have been tumbling rocks.
oh.
They're not
Mhm.
not very far to see right now, but since I had to turn my rock tumbler off for this anyway, open it up and show their current state, and hopefully it's a very well sealed container. It's always really hard to open. It's like,
Don't they just have like this blurry stuff on them when they're in the tumbler? Like they look
yeah,
all dirty and
Well, it has the slurry, but like it rinses off pretty easily. Or wipes off pretty easily. Ugh, there we go. Let's see. Yeah, let me see if I can do this. The water looks like that right now. That's the slurry. But let's see. I'm just holding this under it so it doesn't drip on my laptop. But this is one of the ones that we're working on.
Can you hold it a bit more? I couldn't
Hold
see
on,
it.
I'm gonna figure out where my lamp went. For some reason, my lamp is under my desk instead of on it. I move it
Of
around my desk
course.
a lot, but there's no reason for it to be under it. Eee. Let's turn that slightly. There we go. All right. Let's see. So here's the gray one I'm working on.
Oh,
Ooh, pretty.
And let's see. Aha. Here's a pretty composite one with a few different minerals in it.
Ooh, nice.
I'm gonna have to decide for sure, but I think probably this part and possibly this part on this side as well probably won't end up polished because it will take forever grinding them otherwise.
Yeah, you're gonna lose like a lot of the rocks trying
Yeah.
to do.
Plus nice little imperfections like that are fun sometimes. Here's
yeah.
here's another pretty composite one. I'm rinsing them in my paint water. I'm not sure that'll be good for my paintbrushes, but doesn't show up as well. There's a bit more reddish orangish in there than is showing up on the screen.
Mm. Still pretty.
Not a lot, but just a tiny bit more than what you're seeing. And then, and as I've been learning about this, I'm learning how to identify them and stuff. And I'm gonna make some jewelry out of them. And some of these were from my 9-year-old's rock collection, and he said that I could polish them, but it'll be up to him if they can be made into jewelry or not. This one has some orange too.
Oh, pretty.
It's just a touch darker reddish than what it looks like. It looks yellow there, at least on my screen.
Yeah, it does look yellow.
Aha, here's one. This is one of my quartz.
Ooh.
This one has some quartz in it, but it's a composite. But I have a couple that are almost entirely a clear quartz. And one of the things that I was learning is that it's actually best to only put those through the rough grinding and not through the final polish because they actually tend not to look as nice fully polished as they do just ground polished, but not through the final polish cycle.
Interesting.
I apologize if you hear my husband in the background.
Couldn't so far, but then what I can hear and what other people can hear aren't always the same thing.
Is he singing?
Nope, he's yelling at my dumb, stupid blind dog.
At you?
Poor puppy. And I have my favorite hairpin today.
Yay!
You doing okay?
With this
Didn't,
with
dinner
this
just,
with this hairpin. I was talking to the boys the other day and I like pulled out my hair like that and I was like, I'm STRTs. And my 11-year-old, almost 12-year-old, he's gonna be 12 in just a few weeks.
oh no!
Anyway, he was like, I was thinking more like a knight. And so we started talking about the merits of being a pirate versus being a knight, and we started inventing a new character that we're writing a book about now. The kind of writing a book that an 11-year-old and 9-year-old do with me, but we created a character called a pyrite. It's
Mhm.
a pirate knight, but his sword is made of iron pyrite.
That's awesome.
He has the fool's gold. Anyway, so that's the stage that those are right now. So I took a picture of them before I put them in, and I'll take a picture of them when they're done the rough grind cycle. And I still need to do the fine grind cycle. But before I do the final polish, I'll get another picture, and then a third picture when they're fully polished, and I'll be posting them all. Where did my washer go? Anyway, so I'll post pictures of all of them once I've got them fully polished, and then I'll see what things I make for them from there. But for reals, where did my washer go?
I don't know.
I could see more than just basically your head. I would help you look.
Very true.
It was right here. I took the lid off. The lid is still here.
Is it under the lid?
Nope. I put the lid back on already.
Oh.
Because that's what I thought was it was either under the lid or behind this. Anyway, I'll set this back here. It was under the container.
Interesting. How did you do that? Oh, could you lift it up the container?
I lifted up the container while I was doing this, and apparently I set it down on it. Anyway, so tonight I shall continue painting my boots. At the rate that I'm going, my boots won't be ready until it's summertime, and I don't want to wear boots anymore. But at least I'll have them for next year.
Well, I'm working on my work shawl that I no longer need because it's March. But
But it's such
Yeah.
pretty Eastery colors.
I know it'll keep me warm in the winter months next year.
Finish it before the end of this month, and you can wear it for Easter.
Yeah, right?
Right.
I don't like the Easters in March. It just doesn't sit well with me.
Throwing me off a bit.
Everybody keeps talking about how Easter's so early this year.
It's not. It's the certain Sunday in the year. And so sometimes it lands in March.
Right. Well, I looked it up because I was curious, and it's somewhere around a quarter of the time that it falls in March.
Yeah.
Like, it feels more often than that to me.
A quarter of the time sounds right.
But this year, Good Friday falls on my will be 12-year-old's birthday. Or his birthday falls on Good Friday, depending on which direction you want to consider that.
Well, considering
Anyway,
Friday is always on a Friday and your son's birthday is not, I would say it would be, it
well,
falls on his day.
his birthday falls on a Friday. Good Friday falls on the Friday that is his birthday. So I think it's kind of okay to say either way.
Good point. Good point.
So Karen, what are you working on?
Well, D&D campaign starting up anew. I'm creating a new character journal.
Nice.
So my character is very fiery, so I'm going with some blacks and reds and fires. I'm going to try to design the cover. I only have one of these, so I have to do two of them. I'm gonna try to design kind of like a fiery, smoky theme to her journal.
I have something back here that I worked on for a while that I can't show yet until we actually have you guys at the point in the D&D campaign that you've seen it, and then I'll have to show it the next session because I'm very proud of it.
Yeah, Karen's actually convinced me to make my character a journal as well to catalog her progress.
Fun. I'm so
Um,
excited.
effort to get her more excited about her character.
I've been working on a table of NPCs, just to have, I have a bunch of them in my head, but that way I just have them if I need to grab an extra NPC that I hadn't planned on. And I was trying to figure out how to do one, and she ended up being a major part of the campaign instead.
Well, it's like Jeannie. I pulled her out of thin air. For those who don't know, in the campaign that I run with us three, Jeannie is a little orphan girl of, how old they make her, like 11? Like,
I thought she was younger than that, like 9 or something.
yeah.
My kids' ages.
yeah. And she's really young, and she runs all the orphans in town. She's like the head orphan. And
And she's like, she became our favorite, and we were like, we just want to adopt her and keep her forever. And Karen's like, you can't do that, or the other orphans will die. You can't take her with you.
We're like, can Jeannie come with us on our adventure? Karen's like, no, she has to stay behind.
I'm like, I literally just thought her up on the second. Like,
For anyone watching who has watched campaign 2 of Critical Role, which I know neither of you two have, but anybody watching who has seen that, Jeannie is our Kiri. For you two and anybody who hasn't watched it, Kiri is a Kenku, which I'm sure Karen knows, but Kenku are a semi-humanoid bird species that, according to the monster manual, are wandering vagabonds and thieves, but according to every D&D campaign I've ever known them to show up in, are just everybody's favorite, and they're sweet and everybody loves them, and nobody wants them to actually be how the monster manual describes them. But they are unable to say words themselves. They have no language of their own. All they can do is mimic words and sounds they hear, but they understand, and they try to put those sounds into ways that make sense, but they mimic them exactly as heard. So in some campaigns, people make it so that they can't mimic back words. It can only be sounds. So somebody will do something and they'll mimic back like a bell that they've heard before. But it can't just be any generic bell sound. It has to be exactly identical to the exact way that they heard it before. In others, and the way that Kiri was in that campaign, Kiri was a child whose family had gotten eaten, and they rescued her and found her a new home. And she is learning to mimic back, but she can mimic back words, but it's not only like the exact tone, it's literally what comes out of her is the exact voice that you heard. And since Critical Role is made entirely by voice actors, Matt doing Kiri mimics back, like she would mimic back things that she heard the different characters of the campaign say, and he would mimic them back sounding like the character who said them so well. And it would be like, oh my gosh, Jester's voice just came out of it. Oh my gosh, Caleb's voice just came out of him. And but it's this little girl bird person that all she can do is repeat back. And so they'd be like, how are you doing, Kiri? And she'd be like, I am sweet. Because that's what one of them told her, and it was how she knew how to respond.
very
And
Mockingjay.
everybody loves Kiri.
Very
What?
Mockingjay.
Yeah. But absolutely adorable. And like I said, everybody loves Kenkus. In my experience with live play, D&D podcasts I've listened to, shows I've watched, everything, the angle that's at is looking like it's just like a stick sticking straight up out of my head. There we go. That I don't think I've ever witnessed any campaign in which a Kenku was used as described in the monster manual. Anyway, so new book.
Yep. New book.
Before we get into discussing the book, overall first impressions. Like it, don't like it.
I think it's
Uh,
written differently than Little Women. It seems to be
Yeah.
written a little bit different.
Yes.
I agree.
Uh, I feel a slight shift in Joe's character from the way that she was portrayed in Little Women to the way she's portrayed into Little Men.
An unrealistic shift or a growth of character shift?
Almost a reversion of character, because like after Beth's death, she went to being more sophisticated, more like almost trying to be like Beth was. Um, and now it seems she's reverted back to more of the original Jonas that was about her. That's what I think.
What do you think, Lisa?
I think it is more like an age thing. I don't know how many years have passed since the end of Little Women.
Well,
And
Demi, didn't they say Demi's like,
I think he's like
I think
12.
yeah, this was to say.
Yeah.
I think they're 12. So I think it's
I know
about like 6 years.
Franz, the nephew, anyway, Bear's nephew is 16, they said.
Yeah, his
But
nephew.
I don't remember how old he was in the book, so.
Right. Yeah, I think it's been about 6 years since the end of Little Women, since their mother's birthday party. I want to say about 6 years.
That sounds right.
Um,
I accept. Sure, why not?
so I mean, obviously she's had 6 years to get this school running, and it
Well,
almost
maybe
seems
not.
like they tried to make her more like her mother a little bit. Like maybe she aspired to be her mother in cases. And
She always did. I mean, she
I don't
said
mean
that.
that like yeah, like I don't mean that in a bad way without getting too much into the book.
No, but I'm saying like that makes sense to me because she literally aspired to. She would talk to Marmee about like, I don't know if I'll ever be able to be good like you. And I think
Right.
it's seeing some of the fruition of growth that
And in
she
this
didn't think she would
time
ever be
frame,
able to achieve.
right. In this time frame since the last time we've seen Joe, she has gotten married, she's had 2 kids, she started a school full of kids. I didn't really see her as like a kid person though, like someone that tolerated a lot of kids. But then again, she is the one who homeschooled all of her siblings.
She did.
And she's a rambunctious tomboy, so of
Um,
course she's gonna school for rambunctious
so like
boys.
I think it was just an adjustment of my view of her to being like this person who enjoys kids so much and um you know, but obviously people grow, characters grow. It wasn't necessarily a negative thing, but I did notice a big change in Joe between one book to the next.
Yeah, I see that. I think that, like I said, I do think that it's very much something she always strove for, to be like Marmee. So I think it's fitting that she, especially because she wanted to be able to have Marmee's patience and such, but she didn't think she would ever be able to. So I like that you can see where she does now, and see more of her maternal instincts coming out. But like considering, I think a lot of how we saw her interact with any child was primarily just with Amy. And there they had the sibling rivalry, but even with their sibling rivalry, you still saw some of her maternal instincts come out and things. So I like being able to see that come to more fruition. Also, I know a lot of that often does change for women with pregnancy because it literally rewires the brain.
Um, Also, I think if you remember near the end of the book, Daisy and Demi loved their Aunt Dodo.
Yes,
Yes, they love Aunt Dodo.
Dodo.
Uh,
I mean, who can blame them?
They are very protective of her, like in the first chapter. I noticed, like Daisy and Demi are like, Auntie Joe, like
they're not
Um,
they treat her
protective
like
because
she's sacred. It's so precious.
Then I keep wanting to go off and say other things, but we should probably do a bit of a recap of it before I
yeah,
just start randomly cherry picking things to say from throughout.
So chapter 1 is about a boy named Nat who has been sent
Are you
there.
sure you want to be the one doing this, Lisa?
Does someone else want to say it? They'll probably come out clearer.
I'm just concerned about your voice.
It doesn't hurt. It's just not there.
Yeah, but we don't want to make it more not there.
I am perfectly fine. Just the voice is going.
Okay, so we start out chapter 1 with a boy named Nat showing up at the doors of Pemble. I messed up the name. Pemble.
It's not Pemberley.
Pemble.
Hold on.
Plummerfield? No.
Plumfield.
Plumfield. There we go. I was close.
Yep, you're the one who got me there. I would not have thought of it if you hadn't said Plummerfield.
And he's greeted by someone who takes the letter from him, and he's just sitting in the hall and seeing all these boys and this little girl whom he finds out is Daisy. And then
The only girl there besides Joe. And can I just say, as a woman with a husband, 2 sons, 2 male cats, and now a male presenting, let me say, male assigned at birth and male presenting, but non-binary, boarder in our previously spare room, boarder, renter, tenant, whatever you want to call them. I very much feel for Joe and Daisy. It's just like, this is so familiar.
I gotta
Anyway.
be honest, when they first showed Daisy, I thought that it was like I thought this was further in the future, and I thought it was Joe's daughter by chance before she was introduced. Like I was trying to think about what child, what little girl would be in this school.
I think, and it's only been like what, a month and a half since we finished the book or something, and I'm not 100% sure even so, but I think they said that she only had a couple boys of her own. I don't think she had any daughters.
Yeah, she didn't, and but that was my first thought was, oh, did Joe have a daughter? That was my first thought.
Gotcha. Anyway, sorry, Karen. I super interrupted you there.
Okay. As soon as I saw Daisy started having Demi introduce himself, I knew it was Daisy.
Daisy, yeah, but he first gets greeted by Thomas Banks, and then who rode down a banister and thought he was half dead.
Which apparently is not an uncommon circumstance for that child.
Apparently not. and then Daisy and Demi come, and then Daisy whisks him away to see Aunt Joe. And
I just have to say, I love how Demi is like so serious, and then he introduces his sister like she's the most precious treasure, and I was just like,
because he's always so proud to say that she's his sister,
and he doesn't understand boys who can't proudly say that they love their sister, because why wouldn't you?
And then there's the whole my favorite thing was Mama Bear and Father Bear. Mama Bear and Papa Bear.
Mama Bear and Papa Bear, and these are our little baby bears. These are the little bears.
Okay, I gotta be honest, I forgot their last name, so I was wondering why she was calling them the bears, like Mama Bear, Papa Bear. I'm like, why are you guys being bears?
I don't know. Super unrelated except to the spelling of bear. Wildebeest. I literally at 36 years old today just learned that wildebeest is spelled E-E-S-T at the end, not E-A-S-T. And I was like,
Really?
what?
Yeah.
That makes it seem like it should be a 90s boy band. And but then I was talking to our tenant, we were discussing it, So they looked it up. And they're like, well, why is that anyway? And looked it up. And it's because they were named by Dutch settlers, and beast with that spelling literally means cattle. They named them Wild Cow. I was like, 0 points for creativity. Anyway, okay. I just had to rant about that because it's been bothering me all evening. Should not be spelled that way. So yeah, so they met he met the bears, and then I think that's when we first learned that he's had a cough. Had they mentioned that before that and I missed it, or
No,
they
like they
didn't
didn't make his
mention it.
character sound like he had a cough. They didn't mention that he paused to cough. Like all of a sudden, they tell us he has a cough.
yeah, I think that it was kind of her way of, show don't tell.
I I think
It's-
just the boy was they were trying to do it from the boy's perspective.
And he was
And
so used to the
he
cough.
was just so used to the cough.
Yeah. I agree. Plus he was like gazing around in wonder. He probably wasn't even noticing that he was coughing, even if he hadn't been so
And it
used to
sounds
it.
like he's had it for a while.
Yeah.
'Cause,
Yeah, I mean,
so he's probably just used to it.
yeah.
You know, it's
So they they sent their older boy Robin to go get some cough syrup from Nursey. And I love that they call the nurse Nursey. I also loved when we found out who the nurse was, but I'm going to hold off on that for a second. But they sent him to get some cough medicine from Nursey and a flannel to wrap around the boy's neck. And so he was getting worried, and Joe rather than either let him be worried or pointedly reassured him by just being like, now listen to my little rascal over here pretending to cough because he wants some of this cough syrup too because it tastes so good because it has honey in it, so that he wouldn't worry, but without like calling him out for worrying either, which was adorable and I loved it.
Yeah.
And then,
then-
but then my germaphobe self, when he got to suck off the spoon after the kid took the cough syrup out of it. Ah, now you're gonna have 2 with a cold. Good job. Except
It's
he
share
probably,
germs.
I'm sure he doesn't actually have a cold anymore. He's had that cough for so long. It's just the like infection in his chest hanging on. He probably doesn't have shareable germs causing it at that point. But still. Yeah, so then which part came next?
The dinner.
Was it dinner? I was gonna say, was it dinner next?
Dinner.
Dinner, and Joe, in her wisdom, set Nat
next to Thomas.
next. Yeah, thank you, because I was not gonna remember who it was. And basically was like eavesdropping on their whole conversation because she knew that she would learn more listening to the boys talking to each other, especially that friendly boy, friendly outgoing boy talking to him, than she would learn having a conversation with him herself. So that was
you feel
smart.
more comfortable with people his age.
And then
he played the fiddle.
yep, she found out that he played the fiddle, and so she brought one down and he played the fiddle for them.
It was
And
apparently really good.
I think it's partly a more of a turn of phrase. Like we
Yeah,
would
'cause you
say,
said violin too.
no, fiddle is a fiddle and a violin are the same instrument. It's only a matter of which music is playing on it. No, what I was gonna say is they the way that he says I did my best, please like it. And I think it's like the same as how we would say, if you please. But like
Oh, I thought he was.
the fact that he says please like it just tore at my heart.
I didn't think he said that out loud. Again, I'm listening to an audiobook, so I'm not seeing it.
It had the
Um,
quotation marks in the
but I didn't know if it was him actually saying that or if she was saying that's what he was saying with his eyes. Um, so I wasn't sure.
I'm pretty sure it was him actually saying it. Let me just double
Yeah,
check.
I think he actually said it.
I've just been reading it on where I linked on my Facebook page today, the Project Gutenberg website.
I bought all 4 books on Kindle for $1.
Nice. Where
I
am
say
I?
4 because at first we're like, oh, there's one called Good Wives. Oh, it goes in between Little Women and Little Men, and then we found out that it's really the
Yep.
second half of Little Women.
Yep. We had a whole conversation about it. We were like, oh, are we missing one? And I was like, I've never read that one. And then apparently I have a couple
Yeah.
times now. I just didn't know that was what the second half of Little Women was called.
I read the first chapter and I was like, this seems oddly familiar.
Yeah. This would be in the first chapter because the second chapter is just talking about who the different boys are.
I think I would have preferred more red, but you is not red, so maybe just a dab of orange.
No, Lisa, you're right. It says he stopped and glanced about him as if to say, I've done my best, please like it. It had the quotation marks, and I clearly did not read it very precisely. But I have read things before where somebody said, please like this, but from like, I was gonna say this time period, but probably honestly even earlier than this time period, like Jane Austen type era. And that they would say something like that I have the impression just means like if you please. So that's what I thought it was there. I didn't realize that he was not actually saying that out loud.
Still might have been meant that way anyway.
Well, it says he looked about as if to say I've done my, but yeah, you're right. But given that it was as if he was thinking that, I mean, yeah, it could have meant either, but it was probably a little more. That gives me more of a sense of like he has that hopefulness in his eyes, like please like this,
He wants to be like
please
he
think I
wants
did
to
well.
fit in.
And then hold on, I have to read this other one. It was the proudest, happiest minute of the poor boy's life when he was led to the place of honor by the piano, and the lads gathered round, never heeding his poor clothes, but eyeing him respectfully and waiting eagerly to hear him play again. This whole thing is just like, why can't we just live in a world like this?
I agree.
Oh,
Like, it seems like all the boys at Plumfield, I mean, I'm sure they pick on each other, they're boys,
and
but
they mention that a few times, but
like they don't judge each other, which is nice.
well, and a lot of that it seems like is Joe and Professor Bear. What is his first name?
Fritz something.
Is it? I thought that was his nephew. Or is that
Fritz
Franz?
Franz. Franz is his nephew.
All these names starting with FR and ending with Z. Anyway, that they it's something that they instill in the boys. Like, they mentioned a couple times about like, somebody would be made fun of, but they didn't let it fly, and therefore it never happened again. Which if only getting kids not to pick on other kids was as easy as punishing them once, but still. Um,
Well, I mean, poor Thomas hasn't learned his lesson. He's still causing trouble every other day.
Yeah. That was the good thing. At least like in the second chapter where they're describing the boys, it's like, okay, they're not all like impossibly perfect. Okay. That's good because otherwise I was about to ship my kids back in time into literature and have Joe raise them.
Right?
Um, yeah, so then they finished the song with the violin, the flute, and the piano, and the boys singing, and um as soon as they finished singing, he just started sobbing, which without revealing somebody else's story reminds me way too much of a child I know who has finally been removed from a painful situation and has had experiences like that of just sobbing um, when experiencing just being in a loving environment. So that also really got to me. Um, but he's overwhelmed by all of it, but he's also overtired and he's been sick, and Joe takes him upstairs to get ready for bed. And then he's loving it, but still overwhelmed by the feeling of being clean and in clean clothes and clean sheets and a comfortable bed and isn't really able to sleep right away anyway. Which is understandable. And that's where we find out that Nursey is Mrs. Hummel. And that made me smile.
If I remember correctly, the Hummels were the family that um the Marches helped look after, the ones that didn't speak English, right?
Yep, the German family that lived nearby, and then um, the baby died and Beth got
Uh,
sick. The
the
baby
Scarlet
died in
Fever.
Beth's arms, and it's Mrs. Hummel who's Nursey. And if you think about the passage of time, those kids are probably, if not all out of the house, at least, given the family's financial status, probably all working. And because they'd all be at least teenagers by now, since the youngest one had died. Um, so they'd be at least toddler and above when that happened. So it's been a good 15 years, 20 years since then. So the kids are all either at least teenagers, if not all adults. And Mrs. Hummel has a job working for the Bears. I assume it's Mrs. Hummel. It could be somebody younger and be
I think
like
they
one of the
said
Hummel
Hummel.
girls, but they said Hummel, but it didn't say Mrs. They called her Nursey. At least I don't think it said Mrs. Um, yeah, Nursey Hummel. So she um, could be like one of the Hummel's girls or something. But I think it's Mrs. Hummel because I see her as being somebody older than,
Yeah.
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 I don't know, maybe they'll specify more later. I've only read this one once, and I haven't watched a movie of it a bajillion times or anything, or ever. I don't know if there is one. Um, Although while reading this, I was thinking that, they could make one like with same actors. Time has passed since 1995. It wouldn't be unreasonable to make one. The time has passed. Just,
I don't
just
know,
throwing that
being
out there.
almost 30 years, I feel like
Hey, that didn't stop them from making Disenchanted 20 years later when it's only supposed to be 5 years later. or 10 years later, 10 years later. It's supposed to be 10 years later, but it was 20 years later that they made it. That's what it was.
What?
Disenchanted. From
Yeah, those two
from
movies aren't
Enchanted.
10 years apart. I mean, 20 years
There's-
apart.
They are they're quite a distance apart actually. Hold on.
There's no
It's
way
birth-
that Enchanted and Disenchanted are 20 years apart.
Enchanted. Hold on.
Karen's
looking
looking
it
at
I'm looking it up too. Okay, 15 years apart. Sorry, 15.
Yeah, 2007 and 2022. Yeah, so 15 years apart.
15 years
That
apart, and
sounds right.
they're supposed to be taking place 10 years apart.
Like 5 to 10 years apart. Yeah,
10
It
because she
doesn't
was 6
sound
and
right.
then she's 16
right.
or 8 and 17, 18, something like that. I think she was supposed to be 6 in the first one. I don't remember. At any rate, it is more years apart in real life than in the movies. And
That doesn't feel right.
I mean, why did I just blank on her name?
Amy Adams.
Nope. I'm back on Little Women.
Oh.
Winona Ryder. Winona Ryder doesn't look 30
Oh, she
years
doesn't look-
older.
Yeah, she doesn't look like she's aged that much.
I mean, she's aged enough to look like she could be Mother Bear, but she has not aged enough to look like she's too old to be Mother Bear
Exactly.
at this stage. You know, I mean, she played at 20 years old, 19 years, whatever she was. She played from age like 14 to 24, so she could totally play age 35 to however old she is by the end of Joe's Boys. I think we need more. That's all I'm saying.
More movies.
More. Anyway, wow. I just looked at the clock and we have like 12 minutes left and haven't even gotten through the first chapter yet. Although in my defense, they are long chapters. So
Well, that we spent the first like 20 minutes talking about projects and booths and
well, you know, it is a book club and crafting circle. Is probably the diversion into D&D for a while that really did it.
So
I
about
don't
the
know
end of
what
chapter
happened.
1.
What, Lisa?
The end of chapter 1.
Yeah.
Then it gets down to like the pillow fight, and I like how
Yes.
Joe
Oh my gosh, I love that
is-
pillow fight.
continuously explaining how Saturdays are their wild and rambunctious days to little Nat.
And like,
Um,
we allow this on Saturdays. This isn't an all the time thing.
Right. And then she's like, and then the pillow fight, she's like, yep, if I give them one night a week, they behave the rest of the days. And I just think that's such a joke, like compromise.
Yes.
Like-
And it's such a Joe compromise. And also his response is such a sage, knowledgeable 12-year-old child responding. That's a very beautiful idea. I think this is a very wise thing for you to do. It like it's
Oh, I
just
took
so
it as a
perfect.
beautiful idea as he liked the idea of being able to be free like that. To just
Oh,
be
he definitely
wild.
does. He definitely does. But I think that the way that he said it, that's a beautiful idea. It was very approving. I think he's excited about. I mean, it was clear he's excited about it.
He's very excited.
And he said he wanted to get up or it said that he wanted to get up and join in, but that he wasn't sure that doing that on his first night there was the best thing. And I was just sitting there like, doing that on your first night there would have been fine, but you gotta rest, kid. You've been sick. You don't need that
You got to remember,
right now.
you spend like quite a bit of time going, are they going to like me? Am I going to be able to
I know.
stay?
I know.
This is
I didn't question him making that having that concern. It made perfect sense that he would have that concern. I just wanted to be like, no, you can get up and join them. And then at the same time, I wanted to be like, no, you've been sick and coughing. Don't go join them. You're just going to set yourself into a worse coughing fit. lay down and rest. It will be there next Saturday. Um, that was my mommy self being torn between those two internal responses to him wanting to get up and join, not questioning him having that reaction. That makes perfect sense. And I could not get this cover off this paint without getting it all over my fingers. The seal in this paint like
Very
peeled back and left a layer. Anyway, so they have precisely 15 minutes, and when she tells them it's time to go to bed or you will pay the forfeit, they all go to bed because the forfeit is not being able to do it again next week, and they didn't want to do that. And I went, I wish that knowledge had that effect on my children, because even when I allow them to do fun things and say, but you have until this time, or but you have to follow these restrictions or else you don't get to do it next time, they still don't, because my children have no sense of object permanence or concept permanence. And the fact that hers apparently do, although the way that they described them, I'm pretty sure a couple of them probably don't, but just listen because the other ones do, and peer pressure.
Yep. It was funny reading that whole forfeit thing. It brought me back to my childhood. So when we were younger, we used to play Quakers meeting a lot.
Yeah, that's exactly what I thought of too.
Bosses
And the
high.
funny thing was, I didn't understand what a forfeit was. So we just assumed a forfeit was a price you had to pay, which I guess is kind of accurate.
Technically,
But we would be like, so we'd be like, Quakers meeting is begun, no more laughing, more fun. If you show your teeth or tongue, you have to pay a forfeit. And the forfeit is, and the person whose turn it was to say it would pick like almost like a punishment if they show their teeth or tongue. Like the forfeit is
that's not an inaccurate interpretation
but
of that. But we
it
never made the forfeit be anything in my family.
we did every time.
So really quickly, he goes to sleep. The entirety of chapter 2 is just an overview of who all the boys in the household are. And there were a couple things in chapter 1 and chapter 2 that had me going, ew, that did not age well. But most of it was really good and very forward thinking of the time. So I mean, it doesn't bother me that for instance, the boy, I'm terrible with names. But the boy that they refer to as an innocent, that didn't bother me. Oh, thank you, Adblock, for popping up a tab that my Adblock has been updated so I can't see if anybody's commenting on stuff in YouTube. Anyway, that didn't bother me because like that's a concept of the day, and a lot of people don't like that concept being used in that sense anymore. But it was fine at the time, so that didn't bother me. But the fact that he was pushed to study too hard until he got sick and his brain gave out because he had studied too hard was just a little, not sure the science behind that. But there were a couple other spots that I can't even remember now because I apparently just glossed right over them and went, yep, don't love that, and moved on. But I remember there were, I think, 2 different spots that I was like, ew, didn't age well. But now I genuinely can't even remember what they were.
There's one that they pick on that's is he in a wheelchair?
The humpback.
The humpback, yeah.
Which I did have to look up dromedary. Do you guys know that word?
No.
It's just a specific kind of camel. It's the camels with 1 hump instead of 2.
Oh, okay.
I looked at, I was like, I recognized the word as like one that I've encountered before, but I don't think I ever looked it up, or if I ever did know what it meant, I certainly have forgotten by now. But I looked it up at the time, because I wanted more information. And yeah, a dromedary is just a camel with one hump instead of two. Specific kind of camel. The fact that these kids not only know that, but don't refer to it as a camel, but as a dromedary, pretty impressive. But I did love when they picked on him. Dick is his name. And when they picked on him, he's like, God don't care, for my soul is straight if my back isn't. And I was like, you precious, precious child.
That was from the confidence that Joe and them had given him, you know, like
No, that was the first thing that he said. And then they picked up on that, and it says that they picked up on it and continued to try to instill that confidence in him. But that
That
was
they all loved
that was
him
what
for his
he
soul, too.
cried to the kid who was bullying him, laughing at him before
That they, yeah.
yeah, before that kid got punished for it and nobody ever did it again. But that's why I say it's like things like not laughing at them for the
um,
not laughing at him for his clothes and things is very much a thing that the Bears have been instilling in these kids, because that makes it clear that like they don't just automatically not do that. They did. They do. And that kid that, what's the name of the kid that pulls all the pranks? Tommy Bangs. Tommy Bangs with the most perfect last name for a kid that's banging up everything everywhere. Half the time on accident and half the time on purpose. But you know, even though they like he pulls pranks and things and they clearly don't just learn every lesson immediately, they have very quickly learned we do not make fun of other people here. It's not gonna fly at all. I also, it was one of the things that bugged me was John's perspective of Demi needing to be a manly man. Let him clump around so he can be manly. I'm like, whatever.
you have to remember at the time that that was a thing.
Oh, I know. I don't in least bit doubt its veracity as something from the period, or even what a lot of people today would say. That doesn't stop me from going,
I actually thought of it differently. I took it as letting him express his anger and emotions, because there's studies that show that if you let your kids have that emotional moment, it gives them better emotional control as they get older. So I assume that it was just him letting him get his emotions out, and that way that he'd be a mature, responsible gentleman. That's the way that I took it.
I think you might have put a lot of that into it that wasn't in the text, but I don't hate it.
That's just the way I took it. Like, I found out that there was another thing today that I took differently than literally everybody else. So, you know.
I mean, I do that frequently. But no, what he says is he came home banging doors and saying "By George" emphatically and demanding tall, thick boots that clumped like Papa's. But John rejoiced over him, laughed at his explosive remarks, got the boots, and said contentedly, "He's doing so well, let him clump. I want my son to be a manly boy, and this temporary roughness won't hurt him."
I heard books. I read books.
Boots, thick boots, tall, thick boots. He already has the books. He reads like crazy. And they're like, "Yeah, Plumfield's the best place in the world." And he's like, "Well, I think Greenland is the best place based on the book that I'm reading right now, but Plumfield's a close second."
And yeah, again, I think it's just him letting him get his aggression out momentarily, getting his feelings out in a safe space, and he
Yeah,
wants to be
it's
like
not
his
that.
dad.
It's the idea that by by reading and yeah, like incorporate physical activity. Like PE exists for a reason. But the idea that he would somehow be less manly if he didn't have the other aspect. Anyway, um, and that is neither here nor there. It is 8 o'clock now. Um, the um omnibus in the very beginning, that was delivered by omnibus. Do you guys know what that is?
Public transportation.
Essentially, but I've only heard it and read the I forgot the name of it. It's a book about an omnibus that, or a short story rather, about an omnibus that travels through through space. The extraordinary something omnibus. Um, um. Anyway, I've never actually known for sure what it was. So I looked up a picture of it, and it is I mean, I know it's public transportation, I do know that, but I guess I kind of always had an idea in my brain that it was like an early um um motor vehicle. And when I was reading this for when she was writing, I was like, that can't be a motor vehicle. And they were horse drawn, but the pictures that I found of them, they actually look very much like trolleys, like the early trolleys, um, but horse drawn. So I think that actually the omnibus, and like I expected them to look more bus like, I guess. But they looked more like a trolley. Um, so I think that the early trolleys must have been based on them in how they were designed. I just thought it was interesting seeing that.
That is.
Um, so next session will be March 19th for chapters 3 and 4. You guys make much progress?
I switched colors.
I finished the base colors on my second boot, so all base colors are done. I can go to work putting in shadows and highlights now.
Yay.
Which color are you on right now? I can't actually tell through the screen. Lisa.
Me?
Yeah, you said you switched colors.
Yeah, I went from the sparkly glittery purple to the
Ooh.
heather color scheme with the orange and pink and gray. It's heathered. Um I think that's what that's called, heathered, when it's got like the white mix in it. You know what I mean? Like it looks half mixed. I think that's
I
a
don't
heathered
know.
color.
I've never heard a term for that. I believe you.
Yeah, I think it's a style called heather. I think. But yeah. Anyways, cause I'm alternating rows. I started with the purple, and then I did the Easter egg colors. I call them the Easter egg. It's more like a rose garden, really. And then my
I
heather
beg
colors.
your
So am I doing 2
pardon.
rows of purple in
I
between
never
each 2
promised you
rows?
a rose garden.
Yeah. Well, yeah. See, like here reminds me of rose garden because it's green and white and pink and purple.
Yeah,
So I was like, reminds me
coming
of a
out
rose
really
garden.
nice. It's coming out very nicely.
Yeah.
Karen, how about
Let's
you?
just take the present.
Well, I have been, I've completed and messed with and hoped that it's going to end up nice. A semi-fiery looking piece.
Got
I
one pour
probably,
done.
yeah. The problem is this is not a level surface, so all the fire that's supposed to be on the base keeps trying to flood up to the top of the thing, and I think I'm just gonna flip it around.
There you go.
That'll help it. Make it look a little more fiery, I think.
Well,
And I'm
that
also making a set of dice because I have spare resin. So maybe I'll have a cool set of dice to go with my new character.
ooh, nice.
Mhm.
So we are several minutes over now, so that's it for today. Everybody